Hey everyone, welcome to Hunting for Silver Linings. Today is Monday, March 15th. I am in the Great Lakes region of the United States, chapter director for Grand Rapids, Michigan. And today we're joined by Phoenix, Arizona. We've got the new chapter directors, Dom and Stephanie, joined by the former, that's Christina. They're the babiest of them all. They haven't even gone through the next cohort yet, but we're excited to learn a little bit about their ecosystem and of course themselves. So welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is like a little mini version of Startup Grind, but for the directors. Yeah.
Yeah, this is our tiny little director summit. Maybe let's start with Christina. I'd like to hear about your experience as the chapter director. Why is it time to hang up the hat? And then maybe why are these two the ones to take it over?
Yeah. So just to be clear, I am actually like two directors removed now. So we had Lauren Baxter, who was the chapter director after me, and I had kind of helped onboard her. But startups just get in your blood and they don't go away. So so here I am. But so little background on me. I really cut my teeth in tech at a company here locally in Arizona called Infusionsoft, which is now Keep. And they're our own little pride and joy of the startup ecosystem. And just working with those founders really just set my heart on fire for startups and this possibility of, you can really create anything and solve any problems that you want to. And, I caught the bug for Silicon Valley and had a lot of great trips out there, helped Jason Calacanis with Launch Festival, for a few of his conferences as a volunteer, and met some amazing people out there. And then I had first heard about Startup Grind actually at the Collision conference in Las Vegas. And it was my first time actually meeting like another founder in the ecosystem. It was Zach Ferris. He was the founder of Coplex, who was a Startup Grind sponsor. And I just thought it was crazy that I hadn't even really heard much about a startup ecosystem happening in Phoenix. And I found out about it, not even in our own state. I found out about it in Las Vegas. And so something about that just kind of set me on fire for wanting to figure out, like, how do we make this a bigger deal locally in Arizona? How do we connect more people and bring awareness to the fact that we have all these amazing creators right here in our own backyard? And so Zach invited me to Startup Grind, where I met Christy Kerner, who was the original chapter director, and she started Startup Grind here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I just, after that event, I was like, listen, like, I will do whatever you want. Like, I'll pick up trash, like whatever you want to, like, I just want to see this thing succeed. And I'll give you any, of my talents that I have. And then, so I volunteered with her for about a year. And then she was kind of done and wanted to hand the reins off. And so that was me. And I ran it for about 2 years. And I had an incredible experience just getting to know a lot of the people who are dedicating so much resource into the startup community, whether it be their time, their talents, their treasure. We were starting to get some really phenomenal angel investors out of Arizona. We're very close to Silicon Valley, Silicon Slopes, where a lot of our investments have come from for companies here locally. And so I think there's a lot of promise, and I wanted to help in any way I possibly could. So that was my little story there of how I got involved. And then Startup Grind did so much for me. I was named top 20 people to know in tech in the state of Arizona by the Phoenix Business Journals. And I know that was mostly to do with my work with Startup Grind. And, you can't build ecosystems if it's just one person getting all the awards and accolades all the time. You have got to get other people involved. You have got to bring them up the ladder with you. And so I see Startup Grind as a vehicle to do that. And so that's why I handed off the reins to Lauren Baxter, who did a phenomenal job with the chapter also for 2 years. and now to Stephanie and Dom, who both have, so Stephanie in her own right is an amazing connector, and Dom is also a great connector, but he also ran our local chapter of TEDx. And so I thought that was a really impressive stat and something that he could bring his experience to and really show off the startup ecosystem that's here in Arizona. So sorry that was long-winded. That's me.
It's great. It's great to learn about your background. Before I move forward, you said Silicon Slopes. Where's that?
In Utah.
Okay.
They're our lovely neighbor. There's a lot of great startups that are out there, Qualtrics, Pluralsight, all, unicorns in their own right. And when you start getting those big wins, you start getting founders who also want to invest back in and become investors themselves. And a lot of that money has trickled down into Arizona. Like even before Pluralsight and Qualtrics became really a thing, there's a really tight-knit investor community out there that's been pretty involved in Arizona startups. So I think like Signal Peak Ventures is a really big one that invests out here. And then there's another one, I'm forgetting them, but they both invested in Infusionsoft, and they've made several other investments to other companies here as well. So there's that kind of common thread that keeps popping up between at least Silicon Valley and Utah here.
Cool. So maybe Stephanie, how did you get plugged in, and maybe a little bit of your background?
Yeah, so getting plugged in was pretty immediate. My journey into the startup world started November of 2019. I actually joined a startup called RexPay. My CEO at the time, Rachel Mertensmeyer, was featured as a panelist in a fireside chat, and I attended and just instantly fell in love. I actually think Christina might have been the moderator for that one. And so of course, probably. So seeing Christina's personality shine, seeing the collaboration, seeing just this connection of resource that everybody offers each other. There's a sense of selflessness that exists in our ecosystem here in Phoenix that I haven't seen anywhere else. My history of connecting is an interesting one. I really root it back to the fact that my mom has a long line of gypsy blood and loves to move. How does that connect? We'll get there. But basically what happened was I went to 3 different high schools in 3 different states, starting from scratch every single time. So you learn to meet people, you learn to make friends, and you learn to kind of find who you are. And I was really able to apply that skill here in Arizona. I'd only moved here 2.5 years ago from Montana, and I knew absolutely nobody. My trip here was a whim off of a wine buzz, and I was like, I'm gonna move to Arizona. And so I got involved in the startup community, and I started networking immediately, met so many incredible people, and really just like Christina said, caught the bug, right? You can't stay away. It's such a contagious environment that we live in here in Phoenix. And even with the fact that we have like surprise startups coming out of here, like Freestar, we have just the most interesting and ever evolving ecosystem that you just cannot get enough of. So really just dove in. Christina, of course, brought up the position and recommended me. And then we met Lauren and fell in love. So it was just meant to be. And we're super excited for 2021.
Sweet. Dom?
I get to close it out, Corey?
Yeah.
Well, my background is not nearly as extensive as Christina and Stephanie's. I'm a recent college grad from TEDx GCU, Grand Canyon University. And like they said, I ran the TEDx program over at GCU, which is really where I got caught up in the startup ecosystem. With TEDx, similar to Startup Grind, you kind of have to start from ground zero, find your sponsors, speakers, really just, create the program yourself. And from that opportunity, I collided with a few of the people in our ecosystem that run some of the systems that we have, like Yes, PHX, and Phoenix Startup Week. So from that experience, got connected with Jonathan Cottrell and began, right as I graduated, working for his startup, Journeyage, which is where the 3 of us actually work now. And one thing led to another, and Stephanie wanted to apply to be director for the Phoenix chapter. And I said, hey, I'd love to take my operations experience from TEDx with Speako procurement and sponsor procurement and see how I can, walk alongside you in that process. So that's a little bit about my story and how I got here with Stephanie.
Cool. Now, before we get into talking about your ecosystem and stuff, I want to kind of lean in on something that Christina was talking about, and Stephanie also, as far as the networking. Christina, how much would you attribute the value of your social capital to like your continued ongoing success?
Gosh, I mean, like I have not had to apply for a job in a very long time. I'll say that. I usually get hunted out. So, and I love helping build companies, and I feel like it's been really exciting because I have been able to build alongside some really cool people. And so that's pretty meaningful. I would say, I don't know, I love paying it forward. I love seeing when other people can succeed, and I love, that I can help contribute to a little bit of that. I don't know. It's really cool. I think the position that you're in when you are a director is a really cool one because it gives you this opportunity to be able to reach out to really anyone. You can shoot your shot on any speaker that you want to form a connection with. And I did just that. I wanted to meet Lauren Bailey. She's a local restaurateur with Upward Projects. You probably don't know of them, but there's a really popular restaurant called Postino, which was one of my favorites. And I just thought she was a really dynamic personality. And so I interviewed her, and gosh, I mean, I've spoken to so many really, really impressive people and helped make a lot of the connections in our own ecosystem. And I don't know, it's just really fun. It's just like another little stepping stone to make, your own dreams come true. I think you only have one life to live, and you might as well go for it. And Startup Grind's a great excuse to connect all the dots there.
Sure. So now you mentioned something as far as paying it forward. So do you have maybe a story or example where you gave and then you got, like something that maybe stands out?
Oh, that's a good question. I make connections all the time. It's just like it's a constant thing. I don't know of anyone that's like it's like a really big thing. I've definitely gotten a lot of people hired at companies, a lot, and I think that just comes from my the character that people learned from me, and I think that's important. I remember talking to someone who really wanted this HR position at Quick, which is a burgeoning company that's here in Arizona, and she got the job, and she was just like crying. She's like, I'm so excited. She's like, I can't believe you did that for me. And I'm like, oh, it was all you, girl. So but it's kind of nice to make those connections happen for sure.
Yeah. So in the Startup Grind Slack, Madeline, who is the lead for all the chapters in the Americas, she put in something, maybe it was yesterday, said like, how are you all tying in the values in your events? Are you? And I was like, we should maybe talk about that. So that's why I'm gonna lean in on that, because one of our values is give before you take. And this last year has been pretty wild for me, being like, we're a brand new chapter in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And just pouring so much into like the giving, and now starting to reap the benefits of that. So it's almost like I've never work being like, hey, have you thought about this? Do you need that? Do you need something? Do you need a sponsor? And I'm just like, yes, thank you. So yeah, the give first, the pay it forward, definitely something to lean on. So now y'all are going to be going through this cohort coming up in April, so in a few weeks. You said that you, by the end of April, May, we're going to be launching some events and stuff. That's cool. I want to learn a little bit about like your ecosystem. So Phoenix is kind of its own little darling, right? So especially in the last decade, night and day difference. You mentioned a couple names as far as like some really cool activities, whether it's a startup week. What are some of the entrepreneur support organizations, like some of the resources? If I'm a young or new entrepreneur, maybe even new to the market, where do I plug into to like really get some traction and meeting people?
Yeah, Dom, I feel like you're the best one for this question. He's so stinking connected with everybody here.
I'm surprised you said that. I was going to pass it off to Christina. I think that, I mean, like I was saying earlier, I would start with the larger meetup groups. And of course, because of COVID, things, the landscape has changed quite a bit. But I mentioned two of the largest, at least that I've experienced, and Christina, please chime in if you think differently. But yes, PHX, which is just kind of like the hub for everything Phoenix startups. They have 2 socials every year where just about all the founders get together and talk about what's going on, where to get different resources that you may need, and Phoenix Startup Week as well. It's hosted all throughout the valley. A whole bunch of speakers come in, talk about different topics to help your businesses get kickstarted. So that's where I got connected. That's how I found Startup Grind. That's how I found the job that I'm in now. But Christina, what would you add to that list?
Yeah, I'll just double down on Yes PHX. So there's a website. So the founder of our company, Journeyage, actually started this movement called #YesPHX. And it was kind of this movement that got started on this night of like drinking scotch and smoking cigars with a fellow friend who's now a really prominent angel investor in our ecosystem, Mary Martinez. And they're like, hey, like, why are we not on all these lists for upcoming startup cities on Forbes and Inc? And it was because no one was really telling this story of all the awesome things that were happening here. I mean, we've got a bunch of public companies that have come out of Arizona: GoDaddy, Carvana, Mobivity, Axway. These are just really big names, and they're starting to trickle down. Those people who have worked there have gone off and started to create awesome things themselves. So that's so Yes PHX is that overarching hub for all the information. That's like where the website where you would go to find all of these events, because there really are, I don't know about your ecosystem, we're actually starting to get really, really saturated with startup events in particular. We have everything from like the Startup Grind fireside chats to there's like individual product meetups, there's engineering meetups, to like any developer, anything you could ever want, you could find. And so that's kind of your hub of where to find all that particular information. And so it's all community run. Someone updates the calendar on that website. It's Techstars calendar that we use to just put in all of those events to bring awareness to them. And then there's a whole Slack channel and Facebook community where people are able to post all of those information and events. I'll call out 3 major organizations that have kind of taken on a more hands-on approach to helping startups here locally. One of those is Startup AZ Foundation. They are supported by founders who pledge 1% of their equity to give back to startup founders. And there's a cohort every year where you have to apply or you're nominated, and you go through kind of this boot camp, and you get this wonderful support network of other founders and mentors in the local ecosystem. And we really have the cream of the crop that's running through Startup AZ Foundation. And then there's AZ Tech Council and the ACA, and both those organizations help bring tech talent here to Arizona. Any deal of any major company that's moving here, moving their headquarters, deciding to build an office here in Arizona, typically has been touched by the ACA or the AZ Tech Council. And so those are both all three of those are great organizations to look into. Like, for example, Amazon was looking to move their headquarters out there, and all of those organizations had their paws in that deal, trying to get them to come here and convince them to come over to Arizona.
Cool, thank you. So now there's a couple hotspots in Arizona. So how well are all the different like regions connected? Is it pretty fluid, or are you really competing for like the state economic development dollars?
That's a good question. I mean, in terms of my opinion, I feel like everything's very fluid and connected. I don't feel like there's this competing nature here. Of course, that's natural. I mean, in order to be the best, you have to fight for something, right? But truly, I mean, even with a lot of the small business associations here, we're taking talent from every pool that we can and giving resources across borders, no matter what region or what city. We want Arizona itself to be very successful. Christina, I don't know if you've seen different side of things in your long-term experience, but.
And sorry, there's one more organization, I can't believe I forgot to bring them up, the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, they go by GPEC for short. That's another one of those organizations too that fights for those, the economic dollars. And I would say it's competitive to get companies out here. I think they're all over it. They're working with the city to always try to figure out the best way to bring and attract those big talents into the state. I mean, the state is really spread out. So like to go from one end of like the greater Phoenix area, it could take you an hour and a half to get from one end to the other. So I think there's different cities, even individually, that try to attract certain businesses in. There's so the former CMO of Infusionsoft, Greg Head, he started a website called Greg's List. Also just it's a way to compile all the SaaS companies in the greater Phoenix area. Now he's in multiple cities around the United States, kind of publishing all of this data and information about startups. But we actually have the highest concentration of businesses in Scottsdale, followed by Phoenix proper. So I would say that like there's still definitely like economic pull to try between Scottsdale and Phoenix are probably the biggest players in that space.
So you brought up Scottsdale, so and then there's like Tempe, so like and then you have a very large college presence. So with the university and the popularity that's just been growing and the footprint, right? All the new development downtown. Is there like a education or talent gap? If I'm a budding entrepreneur and I go through a program, is it ASU? Is that what we call it? If I go through,
ASU, Arizona State University.
Yeah. If I graduate from there, do I then have to double down and get even like more? I have to go into some like boot camp of some kind, or am I pretty well prepared?
I can talk to ASU a bit, and then Dom, I don't know if you want to talk to GCU. I know there's we actually have some really impressive efforts going for education and innovation in the state. So ASU so cleverly coined that they were #1 in innovation, and that's based off of the amount of patents that I think they've had come out of that particular university. Jimmy Choi is a really notable person at the ASU College of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and she has some amazing programs and boot camps that she puts her students through. There's even a space. So I went to ASU as a student, and none of the stuff, I walk on campus now, and it is crazy how things have changed. There isn't like an entire innovation lab where they have people that will help you work on whatever project that you're looking for. And they have the Edson program where they give scholarships to certain students for innovative efforts. I'm probably not even talking to all of the programs that are out there. These are just like ones that I know about. But yeah, there's a lot of programs in place at ASU, at least. President Crow puts a lot of value on innovation, and yeah, there's a whole college dedicated to it now. So not only is computer science a big thing on campus, but so are the innovative programs as well. And there's lots of grants that stem from there. I don't know if you know Hintwater. She's spoken at Startup Grind a lot. I'm forgetting what the founder's name is, but she was on the main stage a few years ago, but she came out of ASU. So little plug for them. But Dom can talk to GCU. There's a lot of there's an entire angel group that's out of GCU, as well as a lot of other innovative efforts.
Yeah, I think that, like any experience, what you put in, you get out of it. And I think what GCU does a really good job, and we're so much smaller than ASU. I think when I was a freshman, there was maybe 13,000 students, and now there's over 23,000 on campus. So, I mean, growing exponentially. But I think what I really liked about GCU, and Christina mentioned this, was the Innovation Center. So they have an investing group called Canyon Angels, and they're all about funding student-started businesses. So every single year they have Shark Tanks for student businesses and accelerator programs, even thereafter, which I got to be a part of. But I think personally, like what was so great was President Mueller and Dr. Randy Gibb, who runs the business college at GCU, really opens the door to bringing ideas, student ideas to life. So the TEDx idea, that was something that, 2 students just went into their office and said, hey, I want to make this happen. And GCU donated money, facilities, and it became the largest in the state. So there's just numerous stories like that. So, I left feeling prepared as I walked into the workforce because of those opportunities that they provided.
Cool. It's it's really neat to hear that that you guys have nailed the mentorship aspect, the giving it back, and that's a sign of a pretty well-oiled and mature ecosystem. So
I don't know if we go so far as to say mature yet, but like we're getting there for sure.
Well, so after having 120 conversations with different ecosystems, I use the word mature as in behavior and activity, not necessarily size or density. So also to that same point, we're seeing that almost every city can have its own emerging market, right? Especially when we're talking about topics of gender, ethnic, and racial equity and access or barriers to education, funding, resources, all that fun stuff. So maybe since we're there, are there programs? Is there a need? What is it like? What's it like for women entrepreneurs? What's it like for populations of color, indigenous? Is that something that you guys can inform us about, or?
So I think that Arizona as an ecosystem, I'd have to look up the stats, but I feel like we're close to like 40-something% Hispanic as far as what our makeup is population wise in the greater Phoenix area. And I don't think that that's represented by the entrepreneurs that are out there. I think that there's a lot of room to go there for sure. I think I'd have to look at the exact stats too. We're really still low on women. I think we're still really highly dominated white male. And I don't know exactly how to fix it. I think that I have never felt like the environment's unfriendly to me. I also am not a founder myself. I probably put myself in this category of founder supporter. I like helping support other people's dreams. And then I like to be able to leave when I no longer want to work on the project.
Yeah.
So that's where I prefer to be. But yeah, I think there are still communities here in Arizona that don't have internet. And I think we still have an issue of poverty in our city. And I know people in our government that are working on helping to provide computers to those populations and internet sources. Facebook has Project Aquila, I think, still going in Yuma, and that's supposed to provide ubiquitous internet via their drones. We'll see. I haven't heard a lot about that project in a while, but I think there's definitely still a lot. There's a long way to go to cross that barrier there, I think. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have opinions on how we can try to bridge that gap, but I'll let Stephanie and Dom kind of share their experience of what they know too.
Yeah, I mean, so the startup I worked for prior to Journeyage was called RexPay. The CEO was female. It poses a lot of issues because even in terms of investment, the percentage of women receiving funding is so low. And it's very interesting because a lot of investors want to give to, underserved people in general. They want more Black-owned businesses. They want more female founders. They want more things, but there's just not a lot of people stepping up. And that's, I think, what's the most difficult thing to change, Christina, is it's hard. It's nice to create an environment that may foster it, but if you don't have those people stepping up to the plate, how are you supposed to support it? I know I'm excited because I'm doing a lot of showcasing for both females and for youth and for any underserved communities that need a little bit of push throughout 2021, because this is a huge issue. I know Girls in Tech does a phenomenal job of promoting females into tech positions, and then kind of fostering them into running their own companies, starting their own tech businesses. But we do have a long way to go, of course, as I think everywhere really truly does right now. We've seen it grow, but it is not to the extent where we should be proud of it. And so we're hoping, I know through Startup Grind, in May is Female Founders Month. Startup Grind is a huge female founders push. That's the kind of stuff we need to empower people to feel safe to step up, to feel, hey, that idea I had was great. I'm going to do something about it. So I'm really excited to see over the next couple of years, through everything we've gone through in 2020 and 2019, and really forever, for those that do feel skipped over, to feel empowered to step up and start something great. And I just hope that we're a part of that, to foster the growth and promote it and make sure we showcase them on a monthly basis. Whatever we can do in the community, we're here to build it.
Anything to add, Dom?
I was just gonna say I've been in the workforce now 2 years, and I think that one of the main reasons that I'm working for Journeyage was because our founder, Jonathan Cottrell, he is just a man that empowers women, people of color, DEI in the workforce. And so, I'm proud to be working for his company, walking alongside him in that process, and just finding new ways that we will be able to continue to do that. So, but Christina and Stephanie did a great job covering it.
So for as an example, just to like compare, ecosystems. So Grand Rapids, we had a really, best place to start a business, best place to be an entrepreneur, best place, blah, blah, blah. Some of those, of course, are advertorials. Cities pay for that stuff, right? Like Fast Company says that about every city. I don't know, but but then we also have press that we are the worst city for Black male to be an entrepreneur. Like we're dead last, or maybe if we're not dead last, we're really close, but it doesn't matter. And it's interesting how those two things can coincide. They can exist at the same time. Because when we say like, oh yeah, things are, but like for who are they that way, right? For me, for my makeup of the events that I'm doing, that I have done, and this is somewhat arbitrary. I don't know. I've looked at the demographics and breakdown of my community, and I said, okay, well, I'm gonna make sure that I represent twice of what exists. So if it is, say, 22% Black, then I want to have 44% Black representation on all my events, and and I want to have at least 60% female. So that's sort of my like leaning in, because it's like you said, representation and telling the stories, and
Totally.
yeah. So, and it's it's every ecosystem is dealing with it.
Something to add, I just looked up the stats on Greg's list. He does a pretty good job of keeping this all up to date. So there are 698 SaaS companies in the in the greater Phoenix area. And 73 of those have a woman CEO. So that's 10%. And I didn't find any stats on people of color, but I know that those are even less. So just that's a little data breakdown there for you.
And Christina, I remember during Black History Month, we made it a point as Journeyage to give back and find local owned and Black owned businesses to support as a company and as individuals. Sadly, it was very difficult finding them. And that was honestly very troubling and very eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be difficult to find, and it shouldn't be difficult to support the community simply because it doesn't exist. So where are we going wrong?
Yeah, and I know this has probably been talked about to ad nauseum in other circles, but there is something about when you're the one who is supposed to support your family, and maybe you haven't been a family of entrepreneurs, it's hard to start especially a software company. It's very foreign. You often don't have that familial support, and it's really risky to decide to invest your own money or lose somebody else's money. There is a lot of resources on the internet about how to start a company, and I think a lot of angels and VCs, they expect everyone to know the places to look to find these resources, and I feel like it's easier than ever and harder all at the same time. Just the divide, I think, has grown, because if you know where to look and you know about YC and you've read all of Paul Graham's essays and have gone through how to start a startup, and you've read like all of Brad Feld's books on venture deals, the ins and outs of how to create and write a term sheet and what to ask for. Those are all, it's a certain language. It's a different way of talking that might not be inherent to how you grew up. And it's something that needs to be taught. And I think there's a little bit of an arrogance of like, oh, well, this stuff is all on the internet, so you should be able to figure it out. And that is there is a little bit of truth to that, because startups are so hard to start that if you can't Google that thing and try to figure it out, like one of my friends recently posted, like, if you're not a technical person, go Google, like, don't stop saying that you're not a technical person. Google that thing, figure out how to do it. Now you're a technical person. And like, there is some truth to that, but there's also there are definitely like cultural barriers of not getting the support. And that's a very real thing that's a barrier to entry for a lot of people, I think, to start this kind of company.
Sure. And a lot of that stuff's baked in, right? So, and that's where we get into talking about the systemic issues. And so the system can't fix itself. It's made of people, and sometimes we've got to your point of like, where do we like this? So you talked about supplier diversity, and if you I would say that even if you can't find like supplier X for a particular like whatever, find any kind of vendor that you can support, because chances are that person is also an entrepreneur. It's not a tech entrepreneur, but they're an entrepreneur. And then they have a family that maybe have kids or neighbors or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're inspiring or giving the opportunity for someone in that network, that node of that network, to see and access like, oh, I had no idea that this type of business was even around. Or because I personally didn't know that tech existed. I was born into a restaurant family. I was born to wash dishes my entire life. So like if I hadn't bumped into like other opportunities, I'd still be doing dishes. And anyway, so
I mean, same. I think I by chance started working at Infusionsoft. That was the first tech company I was ever at, and it was because a former coworker of mine started working there, and they were like, "Hey, this is your jam. You'd love it." And if I never had that turning point, I don't really know like where in my career I'd be. I've had people all along my path support me. Anita Grantham was probably the first person who ever took interest in me to develop me as a leader when I was at Infusionsoft. She's now the chief people officer at Pluralsight in Utah, and doing amazing things. And I don't know, I've had people along my whole path do that for me. And so I think it's so important to try and when we're on this topic about increasing the diversity of founders, it's time to like look outside your own backyard and figure out how you can be that person for someone else that doesn't look like you, that doesn't come from your walk of life.
yeah, I mentor we have a high school here called Innovation Central High School, and it's in our downtown inner city area, and every year I have a cohort of students, and I have to be really careful because I'm the middle-aged white dude, and my students are Latinx and Black, and I have to be careful not to center like my white journey when I'm working with these kids, and really do my very best. And it's been a lot of learning to empower and give access, open doors, and not just open the door, but like walk them through the door, right? Um, and and these are future entrepreneurs, and they're not all tech entrepreneurs. But we see that most of the entrepreneurs in an ecosystem aren't tech, right? They're lifestyle businesses. We have one program here, it's called 100 Ideas. And every year, people on their mobile phone will do like a 90-second pitch. It's a 100-second pitch. So it's a 100-second pitch, 100 ideas. And instead of just putting it out in the newspaper and in the TV and all of like the white-owned media, they take buses and trucks and vans and cars and go into the neighborhoods and set up tents, and get community stakeholders within the neighborhoods and say, okay, who on this block who's got the ideas? And people are like, oh yeah, you got to talk to so and so. They've got ideas all the time. Great, cool. Let's record a pitch. Like, let's do it now. And so getting those tentacles into the neighborhoods sources an incredible body of ideas. And then they have like this huge demo day, right? And it is categorized. So like you've got your service businesses, you got your food businesses, you got all the other ones. And out of that, inevitably we find like dozens of entrepreneurs that have really great. Does that make sense? Like, so that's kind of fun to see.
That's
So like
incredible.
they have got like we usually get about 800 entries.
That's amazing.
And only 100 get to qualify, but that's a fun little project that I was surprised to see when I moved back, because I spent 10 years in California, really great ecosystem, and then I moved back home and I'm like, what's going on over here?
Yeah.
And I felt that was pretty innovative. So
yeah, it's really interesting. It takes sometimes people seeing it in order to believe it for themselves. And there's a really interesting thing that happens as you get older. For whatever reason, a lot of times you believe what might be possible for yourself kind of shrinks. And we had this great experience at a company I was at. We had a dream manager. This is at Infusionsoft. And part of one of the first things you did when you met with the dream manager is you wrote down 100 dreams. And there's different categories you can think about in your personal life and in your professional life. And it's really, really hard to get to 100 dreams. And when you first start doing the exercise, you're like, oh, I have a million things I want to do. But then when you actually sit down, pen to paper, it's actually pretty hard. Yeah. And once you start crossing those things off your list of accomplishing, the little things to the bigger things, and you start vocalizing what those dreams are, it's pretty powerful. You can accomplish a lot of things. Like we had an employee that became like a stand-up comedian in LA. And we had someone, they started their own like massage therapy business. In the beginning, she had wanted to do this for years and just didn't want to take the plunge, or was scared to take the plunge. But there are so many things, like you kind of have to vocalize them. You have to see someone else doing it a lot of times in order for you to believe that it's even possible, or even to know that it's an option. And so I think just that exposure of seeing, the more light that we shine on people of color, and especially in tech, the more that there's going to be. There's a positivity thing that needs to happen. And then it's about just shining that light, showing them that it's there, showing them it's possible. It's a career path. Even for kids, like I'm the chair of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Scottsdale here. And part of what I have done is I'm part of the STEAM Makerspace Committee. A lot of these kids that go to our clubs, they're on our Indian reservations. They've never been exposed to these careers in tech. They have no idea that they're possible. And so we're bringing these spaces into their local clubs. So it's part of their after school activities. It's starting them young. It's starting them so it's not foreign. It's not something that it's not for me. It's for somebody else. It's something that they really see as a clear possibility. That's one way that you can go about doing that. But how many kids are not cycling through that particular system? So I don't know. It's a good conversation to have for sure. And it should be an ongoing one.
Yeah. So to change the subject, we have a few minutes left. So I would like to hear your impression of your ecosystem, and what's the vibe now that 20% of America's had their first shot. We have 11% that are fully vaccinated. Whatever hodgepodge of states doing whatever they're doing. But what's the mindset? Are people pretty stoked about 2021? A lot of us entrepreneurs, especially in tech, we're not really expecting the hockey stick to be back in until 2022, 23. But what's it look like for you all down there?
Yeah, I think people are excited. I think overly excited, and we still need to remain cautious. But it's nice to have the thought of getting back into the office and having that aspect of socializing and networking, because that's something we all terribly miss. Not everybody, some of us aren't socializers, but truly the networking events have been a huge hole in our community since COVID hit. And while hybrid and virtual is a wonderful alternative, it doesn't fill that gap. It's not feeling like you're going to an event. Everything still remains. Luckily, I feel like Phoenix is a very remote enabled area. I'm sure Christina, everywhere, really, we're fully remote. Most campuses are going fully remote as much as they possibly can. So it's nice that we've been able to enable the distance. But it's hard to not be excited about closing the distance a little bit and being able to shake a hand. It's the simple things. But I'd love to hear the thoughts of Dom and Christina, honestly.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I live in downtown Phoenix, and just in the past month or two, people are coming back. The restaurants are filling up. You're seeing people just having fun again, which is really nice. Suns games are going on. So just a lot of activity is starting to come up again. So, and I think too, Corey, the three of us were talking about, surveying, and it seems like all of the top startup grant directors do this, but surveying the ecosystem, seeing what people want. And, Stephanie and I have already started to put feelers out. Hey, what do you guys want? What do you need? And in-person events is what people are itching for. They're like, we'll do it socially distanced. Like, how do we get back together? So people are definitely looking for it.
Yeah, I think same. I think, I don't know what our vaccine percentage is here in the state off the top of my head. But we have some pretty big vaccine clinics happening. We're doing special pods for teachers and certain groups. And I think that effort is going really well from everything that I've heard. Same, I've seen lots of restaurants open up, and you forgot to mention the Coyotes are still playing.
Oh yeah.
We're at limited capacity in that arena too, but sports are still a thing. I'm a youth hockey coach. We still have youth sports going on. We've had a full season this year. Last year it got cut short because of COVID. So I think there's same thing. I think there's a big appetite for that in person. People love connecting with each other. I think it's very true. It'll be the roaring 20s again when everything does begin to open up again. It's really unfortunate. There has been a lot of really awesome restaurants that have been casualties to this whole thing, venues and businesses alike. So I'm hoping that maybe some of those businesses will come back from the ashes. It'll be really nice to see. But yeah, I think there's an appetite for it. I just don't think anyone's flooding to events just yet. So
yeah,
hopefully by the end of the year.
Hopefully the Rage Against the Machine show doesn't get canceled in June.
Rage. Yeah. That was the last show I saw in pre-pandemic times. Was a Rage cover band.
This is the real one, which is why
This is like a really terrible dive bar. Well, really great dive bar, but
oh, I bet that sounds great.
yeah. So my last question for everyone every time is this: what can the global network of Startup Grind chapter directors do for each of you individually, or your chapter, or your city, or someone you know?
Oh, that's such a big question. I know for us, our priority right now is capturing new sponsors. We'd love to get new representation and get some meaningful logos on the website. Not that they're not, but we want to make sure that we're providing resources the right way. So offering our community as much as possible. The next thing, of course, with my creative brain, I wrote down an entire brainstormed page in my notebook of event ideas. I actually just thought of one while Christina was talking earlier. So really any creative collaboration. I'd love to work with different chapters. I'd love to work with different regions of the United States and get more representation, especially with June coming up. It would be great to foster something and kind of do a Juneteenth conversation, as hard as it may be, but keeping that alive and making sure that we're keeping the community surrounding it. Yeah, I'd love any creative collaboration and representation, and really just anything we can get from our community to learn.
Have you heard of the name David Stengel?
I did just now as you said it.
Okay, so David Stengel is on the diversity inclusion. They also have like their own chapter if you search it on the Startup Grind website. But that Juneteenth idea is like really great. I'm sure that they'd be thrilled, and I know that my chapter would join you.
Absolutely, sounds great.
The only thing I would add, Corey, to what Stephanie was saying on the sponsor side is one of the things we've been hearing from some members in our ecosystem is access to software that helps get their businesses up and running that they normally would have to pay for. And I would love to know the connections that Startup Grind has, or a way or a process of how we should go about approaching these larger organizations and asking for, a deal like that to be able to provide to our ecosystem.
The biggest rock star of I don't want to say that stood up at Global last year talking about sponsorship and having all the brilliant ideas is Pablo down in Monterey.
Okay.
Reach out to Pablo.
Do we know Pablo's last name?
You just type in Pablo
Yeah.
Monterey, like on the.
Yeah, he's one of the only ones. I would just ask that the Startup Grind Global Directors community just embraces these two. I had such an amazing, I've had such an amazing time at the last couple globals I've been to that were in person. There was this year, so the chapter director from Georgia, Georgie, his name was, it was really cool. Like he was the biggest deal in his country, and their embassy sent 2 cases of wine, Georgian wine, to his house that he was staying at in San Francisco. And we had a really fun time with that one night. But they're just the best group of people. I think it's insane, the community. That year, I think was the last year I attended in person. And I think there was like 70 countries represented by just the directors alone. And getting to meet everyone from around the world, it's like you get to have friends in all these different countries. So anywhere you travel to, there's a startup grind, there's this common community there, which is very cool to experience. Like I went to Morocco, and Hanine and Casablanca gave me a bunch of tips on what to do when I was there. And so I just, you begin to feel like a local anywhere around the world because of this community. And I just ask that you embrace Stephanie and Dom the same way that you embrace me, and give them such a rich experience too.
Well, that's nice. That's awesome. Cool. Our hour is up. I'm really grateful for the generosity of your time. I know it's not easy to pull so many people together, but really, really thankful for giving us an idea of what's going on in your ecosystem. Give us the full introduction on who our new directors are down there in Phoenix. Any last thoughts before I let you have the rest of your day?
No, just another congratulations on Director of the Year. We're excited for you.
Belongs to everybody. Belongs to all 60 people that participated. Thank you all very much. Great to see you again, and we'll check in soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corey.